All right, so today, I have something to tell you guys. You ever heard of the ancient proverb of a man turning plastic into gasoline? Well, I sure haven't. But I'm gonna talk about today, guys, about this channel called Julian Brown or Nature Jab. It currently has 1.6 million followers, and he is described himself as the innovator of microwave pyrolysis. Now, for all those who didn't major in chemistry, I will explain what that is later. But essentially, there's a lot of buzz around this channel because he built at home his own like pyrolysis station, and guess what? He turned plastics into gasoline. Now, if you've been around for a while, you know this is not really like a new technology. This has been around for like years. And there's also different versions. There's like you have like electrolysis. You have what else is there? It comes to mind. That's not like it comes to mind right now. But anyways, people are like looking for ways to make like gasoline and stuff. The electrolysis is something a bit different, but you get the whole point. I mean, like over the years, people have come up with many different like fuel alternatives because the whole spiel is that supposedly, like the way that the world's going right now is that the way energy is used is not used in the most efficient way. We also have problems like lots of plastic, and there's also issues such as oil companies doing their thing. And every time there's a new innovative thing that comes out like fuel sources, there's a bit of conspiracy around what goes on. Now, it's not a secret that oil companies want to stay at the top because oil is essentially like the gold of today, even though gold is very valuable. But if you have money in oil, hey, that's it for you. Now, before we get into like the whole video, it was kind of interesting how like apparently, so if you look at the date here, it's the 7/7, so that's what, June, so around June 7th or whatever, he mysteriously went missing. Okay, so a lot of people went straight to like conspiracies. They're like, oh, maybe the government got to him, maybe the government did this and that. But luckily for you guys, it was confirmed that he was just laying low for a little bit because stuff like this, people like take their breaks. But of course, over the histories, there's been lots of mysterious disappearances. That when it comes down to people innovating on new ideas. And so if you actually look maybe about like a day or 2 days ago, he actually said, I'm back. The work for Earth and humanity continues like heart that's never skipped a beat. Thank you for caring. So he's actually had like a really big boom, like in terms of like popularity especially. And so as you can see, he has lots of followers and he shows us the process. So before we get into it, the reason why people were suspicious was, I'm going to give you guys a case that happened like way back. And this is apparently about the water fuel cell, as it was called. So made by Stanley Meyer. So if you just look at the design here from Wikipedia, we have the water cell purportedly split water into its component elements, hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen gas was then burned to convert chemical energy to heat energy, a process that reconstituted the water molecules. According to Meyer, the device required less energy to perform electrolysis than the minimum requirement predicted or measured by conventional science. The mechanism of action was alleged to involve brown gas, a mixture of hydroxygen, with a ratio of 2:1, the same composition as liquid water, which would then be mixed with ambient air, nitrogen, oxygen, argon, etc. The resultant hydrogen gas was then burned, resulting in reconstitution of the water molecules in another unit separate from the unit in which water was separated. If the device worked as specified, it would violate both the first and second laws of thermodynamics, allowing operation as a perpetual motion machine. So you can take a look at the design if you want to, but essentially it's like a self-sustaining fuel source going over and over again. And of course, ideas like this, they tend to get out. So under some circumstances, apparently, and for Meyer's death, he died suddenly on March 20th in 1998 while dining at a restaurant. With his brother claimed that during a meeting with two Belgian investors, Meyer suddenly ran outside saying, "They poisoned me." After investigation, the Grove City Police agreed with Franklin County coroner report that ruled that Meyer, who had high blood pressure, died of a cerebral aneurysm. Some of Meyer's supporters believed that he was assassinated to suppress his inventions. Philip van de Mortele, one of the Belgian investors, stated that he had been supporting Meyer financially for several years and considered him a personal friend, and that he has no idea where the rumors came from. So, naturally, if you're a conspiracy buff, you're probably going to have some suspicions, He's mysteriously gone out of nowhere. Take it as you will. So anyways, but however, there's been other people allegedly having inventions for this stuff. You have like here, the Genesis World Energy, where it's like, oh, guess what? They had a device here, but it turns out that the guy went to 5 years in prison for theft and ordered to pay 400,000 in restitution. Here you have Daniel Dingle, who is a Filipino inventor, but I feel like here in 2008, his Formosa Plastics successfully sued, not his, sorry, Formosa Plastics sued him for fraud, and he was 82 and sentenced to 20 years investment. So he also apparently had a fuel cell as well. And Guillaume Sawar, I don't know how to say that name properly. At the time, he also claimed to have invented a 60% water and 40% diesel or fuel, but that invention was only made to work on only water. But however, it ended in 2012, and so it further claimed the car emits only oxygen rather than the usual carbon. So there's a lot of people who've come up with the whole water fuel cell stuff. What does that have to do with the case at hand? I'm just telling you that in the greater context of how everything works, that's basically, that's basically what it is. There's been a lot of inventors trying to use like water as a fuel source. There's been other people as well, but naturally, it's hard for ideas to take off the ground because, like I said, you're basically competing against oil companies, which have basically a monopoly right now. But anyways, so in case we want to take a look at, I'm just going to go quickly what is pyrolysis. So it's basically the process of using high temperatures in an environment without oxygen to decompose materials without combustion, which I'll explain later. And how does it work? So it says here, the materials are heated to temperatures that range from 300 to 900 degrees Celsius in the absence of oxygen, which prevents combustion and breaks down the molecules of the material. This process generates a mixture of gases, oils, and charcoal, whose proportion depends on the temperature and exposure time. At a lower temperature, more charcoal is obtained, while higher temperatures favor the generation of gases and oils. For example, in the energy sector, gas can be used as an alternative energy source, while oils can only be used as raw material in the chemical industry. So, like I said, this is not a new concept. But the fact that this man here built it in his backyard is pretty interesting. So, I actually want to take a look at his most popular video and see what it's all about.
So I've created my own gas station that makes fuel from plastic waste. Let's go. So this is plastic crude oil, and as you can see, we have quite a bit of this plastic crude oil. Well, it can be fuel, but we need to refine it and clean it up. So let's do that.
Pretty cool, right? In your own house, you can essentially, if you got the right materials without the plastic going around, you can make your own, gas. But in case you have no idea how it works, after watching extensively a lot of videos regarding about it, I'm going to show you a very oversimplified and terrible drawing by me. Yes, by me. I know. So, if you look at the first picture, essentially, so you see here the two blue rectangles. You have the triangles, which is probably the plastic or whatever, and so you're burning it with it's insanely well-drawn fire at the bottom, and so it burns in an isolated environment, and then guess what? It turns into then gasoline, which goes into a different tank. Now, I forgot to draw some other contraptions, but there's other contraptions that trap other aspects of it as well, but that's the main function of how it works. And so the reason why we're going to do like the chemistry class, guys, so bear with me here. So if you actually look at this, I just made up this chemical compound. This is probably like, I don't know, methane something, okay? Some carbon. But if you look here, so whenever you have like a long carbon chain, like breakdown or whatever, or like chemical compound, and which is basically what plastic is made of, a bunch of carbon chains all together. So you put a little bit of heat on it, and in an isolated environment, it's actually going to rearrange itself in a weird way, and so it does that. However, if you burn it and there's oxygen in here, oxygen's gonna attach to it and then poof, explode. Because mind you, every single form of like combustion or every single thing that explodes, it usually has oxygen in it. Hence why, you know, whenever you have a fire, you will have to smother it, because guess what? Smothering it means that, you know, there's no more oxygen, because that's what's really happening. The oxygen is burning. Oxygen comes in and it burns and burns and burns and burns and burns. That's essentially it. So, you know, forgive the really bad drawings. So, well, that's the short version of how that is done. And now, interestingly enough, which is weird that this part didn't get lots of views, but I'm going to highlight it anyway. But if you take a look now, there's actually, you can actually do testing on it. So there's a place called ASAP Labs that he actually went to, where he went to go and test to see how clean his gasoline is. So I actually want to take a look at the methodology that he did it in, because that could give us some more insight of what exactly we're working with here. Because, you know, sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's great. It's great to know how stuff works, so that we can have a better understanding. Well, mostly for you guys, but you get the point. Let's watch.
All right, guys, I'm here at ASAP Labs with Ryan.
Hey.
He's gonna break down what the plastic diesel look like.
All right.
GC.
So on a gas chromatograph, what we found was that we have our ASTM standard diesel in the background. This is that gray one in the back. And then this is your sample here in the front. So on the front end, or our more volatile carbon, low retention time, we found that there was a little bit of a spike, nothing too normal, nothing too abnormal, maybe a little bit of higher carbon still in the diesel. But when we get to the aromatics, which is mostly will be your few additives to help with burning normally, those were totally missing, which is fine, because I don't think you're adding anything to your diesel. Right. But when we get to the actual diesel carbon chain lengths, so from C14 to C18, we see totally normal spikage with the diesel, and it's very clean, very minimal, nothing really out of the ordinary. You even have the trailing end here with your heavier carbons in the 4 to 5 minute mark in the retention time. But yeah, looks beautiful, looks clean, looks great.
And what did you think when you ran it?
I thought it was surprisingly well distilled. I thought it was surprisingly clean as well for plastic, and it blew my mind that plastic could be redistilled into diesel.
And did you have any thoughts ahead of time? Like, did you think it was going to come back clean, dirty, kind of in between?
So it was pretty dark and orangey, kind of indicative of high sulfur. So
Yeah.
I thought there would be some contamination in there, but I was surprised by how clean it was.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan, for breaking that down.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, guys, and I'm here at ASAP Labs again. If you guys got diesel, send them over to these guys, because they do some great work.
Absolutely, we'd love to look at them.
But interestingly enough, if you actually go to ASAP Labs' website, you can actually go in and request yourself to do testing on your own like gases. You have stuff like biofuels and diesel, but this one in case is not biofuel because it's plastic going into fuel. But either point, you actually go to the website and you actually show different methods. And so one of the methods that I believe was in this particular video was the fact that he did it in a way where it was about, you know, distilling. He did distilling. And so in the distilling method, it gets out that he actually got it back pretty clean, which is a pretty cool, you know, think about. And so I think it's pretty great that somebody is, you know, going out their way to find different ways to make energy, because from my understanding, burning oil and doing the other methods is just a lot cheaper. That's why you had coal for the longest time, but people started realizing coal is very, very bad. But why coal was so great was because it was cheap, you could store it pretty easily, and it could just burn. It burned pretty easily, and didn't have to like keep it in a special container or something. But over time, people realized, oh well, maybe this is not so healthy because it gets in your lungs. It could have soot in the air. It's not good. But point is that now I do have to point out some cons. Here is that from my understanding of pyrolysis, if anyone knows how it works better than I do tell. But from my understanding, it's very energy intensive because you have to burn these materials at like plus 300 degrees Celsius, which is pretty high. I'll probably put the Fahrenheit number somewhere, but you get the point. It's pretty energy intensive, and you know, and adding this like a bigger scale, you can see that maybe doing that to all the plastics in the world with all different types, and maybe there's more contamination or something, may not be the best plan yet. I don't know. I'm not in the industry, so I cannot tell you exactly what's going on in that aspect. But it's still cool to see that, you know, somebody's taking a chance or showing that, you know, stuff is possible. Now, my personal opinion about this is why it'll never go mainstream is because one, from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look very profitable. I have to point it out because it's not. Like, it's not pretend it is, because of how much resource it seems to take up. Now, there's pyrolysis centers probably everywhere, but I'm just saying, like, looking at it from my point of view, it's just, yeah, I don't see it that much. You know, I don't see it being profitable. So to pitch this to like a company is going to be a little bit difficult. So there has to be some kind of like a yield. But maybe, just maybe, if this is put on a scale where like you can get rid of like landfills and stuff, because plastic is a massive problem. You had stuff like TMCs aiming to get rid of all the plastic. They're getting rid of plastic in the ocean. There's like the plastic island that's just floating out there. And, you know, I don't have to be repeating myself too much, but, you know, plastic is dangerous because it can get in the way of, you know, wildlife and people, like, you know, like turtles mistaking plastic for jellyfish. All that stuff. So you guys know the drill, but I'll let you know. I'm just telling you, like, reminding you. So, but in essence, the fact that somebody actually did this, like I said, is pretty good. I kind of like, I like the idea. So, I say go give him a watch and see for yourself, judge for yourselves, but it's pretty interesting. And so, for the record, he's not assassinated, okay? He's still around, so don't worry about it too much. I know conspiracy brains are going nuts nowadays, and rightfully for some good reasons, but sometimes, you know, it's a bit too much, but you see what I mean? So, yeah, that's basically how it works. So, if you this video and a little bit of a science detour, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my social description below. But that's it for me today, so I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!